Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Friday. The NFL is back. The NBA just a few weeks behind. We're going to have training camp starting up in just a few weeks. So we've got plenty of news to dive into, as well as a little international news. Some bad things happened this morning with Team USA. Joined by Keith Smith. I'm Trevor Lane. Keith, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little annoyed. Yeah, I'm a little aggravated that Team USA lost. A little cranky about it. It's my kind of last bastions of like irrational fandom are Boston College football, even though they do nothing but ever disappoint, and then Team USA related stuff. So whether it be basketball or soccer or whatever it is, I'm passionate about rooting for our country, in whatever competition it is. And when they fall short, especially one that they're heavy favorites or should win in, it's annoying. And that's, I guess the best way I can put it is I'm annoyingly aggravated or aggravatingly annoyed, however we want to put it, but I'm a little cranky today about that.
Yeah, same. Let me ask you this, because I came to a realization for myself personally. Do you care about Sunday's game, the third place game? Me either. Okay. So because I was feeling bad, like because it's Team USA, like I should care or whatever. I do not care at all. All I want, like if they chose, they're not going to do this, but if they just skipped the game, I'd be totally fine with that. All I care about right now is that the NBA players get back healthy.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, everybody, all sides get back healthy. No more injuries. Let's get everybody back so they're ready to go for the start of the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's maybe it makes me, an elitist and an ugly American in this case, but yeah, I don't care about bronze medals in the World Cup. I don't care about them in the Olympics. It's gold or nothing, at this point for this team. Anything less is, seen as a failure. And that's, I say that with a complete recognition of Team USA can no longer show up with any 12 dudes and just win these tournaments. That has not been the case for years now. They need to show up with the best players, and those players need to be ready to go and ready to play because the other teams are that good now. And it's, that's the thing for me is we continue to deprioritize collectively the World Cup efforts, which is fine, I guess, and maybe that's on me for still continuing to have high expectations, because if our best aren't going to go, we're probably not going to see the best results anymore. That's just the reality of it. If we send a B or C or less team, we're probably not going to win. It's just that's the way it's going to go. And yes, in this case, I'm very loath to use the term we when talking about sports teams, but it's our country, so I'm going to talk about it in terms of we. So that part gets very frustrating to me. Is I do still care, and I know a lot of people who do care, and it's just not good. So that's the frustrating part of it. And I get it. They'll probably have the A team or really close to the very best team they can send in the Olympics, but that's a year from now, and we'll worry about that when it's there. And I'm kind of the approach of like, hey, if there's something to win, let's go win it, because otherwise, what are we doing? So that's where I'm a little at. So yeah, I struggle, and I already decided I'm just going to record it. I'm not getting up at 4 whatever in the morning on a weekend, and I was like, I'll just sleep in and I'll watch it later if it's worth watching. And I guess I care a little because it's against Canada and all that, which is disappointing that that's not the gold medal matchup. But yeah, Serbia and Germany had other plans.
Well, and I think that Sunday's game is now, and by the way, there are other teams that are missing some players too that aren't with their best players. It's not just the US, so maybe that's a little bit disconcerting. Jokic isn't playing, Giannis isn't playing, but again, some of these teams did better than others. But for Sunday's game, man, like it's kind of a bummer, because Team USA and Canada would have been a lot of fun in the final, and now they're in the third place game, and again, just don't really care about it. But really, from the US perspective, it's a no-win. It doesn't matter what happens in that third, because here's the problem. If they win, it's Team USA. You're expected to win. How dare you come home with the bronze? It's a negative, even if they win. If they lose, yeah, it's a little bit worse, right? People will say, oh my gosh, you didn't even get a medal, and that type of stuff. But no matter what, the reaction is going to be negative. They can go out, they could blow Canada out by 50. It wouldn't matter. It's still going to be a negative. It's still going to be a negative reaction. So it's a no-win scenario. Yep. So Training camps are a few weeks away. What you and I care about most is the NBA. Of course, we'd like Team USA to win, but I mean, I'm sitting there thinking from the Lakers' perspective, I'm like, can Austin just start resting now? Does he have to play? Does he? And I know I'm not alone. Fans of a lot of teams are I'm seeing the same discourse in social media. Does my guy have to play in this game, or can he start resting? Because clock's ticking, training camp is coming. That's where you start getting concerned. And again, this is a no-win to play in this game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've seen some Wolves people saying, hey, Anthony Edwards has carried kind of a high usage rate considering it's Team USA, and he's taken some hard hits. And I've seen some of, maybe it's best if he just doesn't play or they go half speed or whatever. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, they lose and it's going to be, they're a joke, right? It's like you didn't even medal. And if they win, it's like, cool, no one cares. Enjoy your bronze, right? And so I'm with you. My whole thing is I hope now the rest of the way, even for Germany and Serbia, which I will watch that. It's, because the reality is it's also going to be the final competitive men's basketball game until we get to the NBA preseason. So that's going to be the last. Well, I guess we've got some of these G League things going on, but it's there's so that's part of it too. But I just want all the NBA related guys. I mean, I want everybody, obviously.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm not saying everybody else can get hurt except for the NBA. Yeah. Right.
But selfishly, we cover the NBA. I want every team at full strength going into the season. So that said, it was humorous. You and I had a pretty good laugh about it before the show because you put up kind of a little recap tweet about Team USA, and I think you used the rocket emoji for us,
which is fun. By the way, I'm no expert in emojis, and so what is conveyed by an emoji, like different people will take different things. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Paul Pierce, supports your use of the rocket emoji.
Paul Pierce uses
a screenshot of the.
Yes, that's right. It was like the clip art thing.
Sure. Yeah. Right. But I replied with, Reeves, what? Is there not two ends of the court? Which I think is a fair criticism. And we can get into that. And it's not clearly not just Austin Reeves. Let me be very clear. And part of that was just, right, you and I like to dig at each other on occasion when we can.
Oh, no, I didn't. I took no offense by it. Right? But the comments had a good time.
Yeah, so the comments had a good time. And one of them, which unfortunately I think the person deleted because I can't find it now, said, oh, no, this is like my parents fighting. But this is way worse because I like you guys more than I like my parents. Which was really
is that a compliment to us? Is that a dig at their parents? Maybe both? Yeah.
I took it as we're great and his parents suck. So, but we'll see. I don't know. Maybe his parents are great too, but we're just we're incredibly great. I don't know. But
we're on another level.
We're on
another level there.
to pull it back to basketball related. Yeah, Austin Reeves had his struggles defensively really throughout the bulk of the competitive games. In the World Cup, we saw he got targeted at times. Teams took him down on the block. That is one takeaway where I think you could see teams go mismatch hunting a little bit against him in the NBA. We'll see.
It's going to happen.
How that all plays out. Yeah, especially, in certain lineups, right, where there's definitely lineup constructions where he's going to be the worst or next to worst defender for the Lakers because they have some good defenders. But it was not just Austin Reeves, and that was by no way my intention because a lot of people are like, "Oh, you let this guy off." It was more. I was having fun with my buddy.
But what abouts come in?
Yeah. But that said, those are fair. This was a miserable defensive performance team wide. I guess it was maybe 6-7 minutes left. They kind of locked in and got multiple stops. That was how they got back into it. To be fair to Austin Reeves, he was a big part of that on the offensive end. He was making some plays. But overall defensively, just a mess. Their rebounding, atrocious for, really 3 out of the last 4 games against Montenegro, against Lithuania, and now against Germany, all teams that are pretty big, pretty physical. But beyond that, my bigger problem, because we know those things are going to happen, was if you're going to go small with Jaren Jackson Jr. or Paolo Banchero or Bobby Portis, or even the baffling few minutes Walker Kessler played, if you're going to go that small, you can't get beat on the perimeter as easily as they did. You have to be locked up tight on the perimeter into guys. And they were getting back cut, straight line drives off the dribble. Dennis Schroeder, I mean, they made Dennis Schroeder today look like he's, going to win the MVP next year. He was just getting wherever he wanted on the floor. And even when he wasn't scoring, which he did more of late, he was creating everything. And even in that case, because I saw a couple of people be like, he only had, like, at the time, it was like, he only has like 5 assists. Yeah, but he's the one getting them in the blender. He's drawing he makes the first pass, which draws the rotation, which then opens up the guy on the backside for it. So it just awful defense. And you shouldn't, if you're Team USA and you shoot in the high 50%, you should be blowing teams out. You shouldn't be getting killed like that on the defensive end of the floor. And they absolutely did. And credit to Germany, they made shots and made plays all game long. Their execution was very high, but a lot of that was against some very, very poor defense.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're not going to win a game if your opponent shoots 58% from three. From the field, 43% from three, which is still really good, and grabs 12 offensive rebounds. Think about this, Keith. Germany missed a total of 30 field goals in the game. They had 12 offensive rebounds. Yeah. That's absurd. You can't get crushed on the glass like that. And again, that's part of that is you look at the bigs, you look at, okay, Jaren Jackson Jr., you're not doing your job in there and rebounding. Paolo Banchero only had 2 rebounds, but it's across the board. They were getting beat up consistently. And this isn't just this game problem. This is a many games problem that we've seen with Team USA. The turnovers were an issue as well. Those did even out a bit as the game went on, but largely it was the glass that crushed this team, that crushed Team USA. I also think, people will criticize Steve Kerr. Look, if they won, people would praise Steve Kerr. They lost by a bucket, so you wind up criticizing him. But I think it's fair to say the starting unit was a problem the entire cycle. The entire cycle, they were getting off to slow starts, digging a hole, and having to battle their way out. They did it at the beginning of the first. They battled their way back. They did it at the beginning of the third. What happened was Team USA, they have the big advantage with their bench. Germany's bench is in. Team USA's bench is in. Team USA's bench, they've got more depth. They would close that gap there. Well, in the second half, Germany was playing their starters that much more. And Team USA, again, allowed their first unit, allowed a big lead to go the other direction. And next thing you know, you don't have time to battle back. They tried, but that starting unit, just the ball movement was not good offensively. There's some good defensive upside and potential, but it was rough. It was rough, and it was something that never truly got addressed. And I wonder how much of it was ego, how much of it is, I know Jalen Brunson was a leader on the team, but man, does that ball stick. And I like Jalen Brunson a lot. This is not a criticism of him, more skill set wise. You had Halliburton sitting right there. Wouldn't have made some sense to have Brunson be a scorer off the bench for you and Halliburton be a ball mover in that opening unit, but didn't go that way. And I think it really hurt Team USA.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to the big man issue, like, we get it. The best big men in the world are not Americans. Mm-hmm. The best American big man is Anthony Davis. And his days of playing for Team USA period might be over. Yeah. Right. Just at this point in his basketball career, he may not.
Oh God, Keith, if he was playing in this tournament, my hair would be gray by this point. I would be so nervous.
Yeah. So that's part of it, right? I mean, it's for the vast majority of American-born NBA players, the priority is NBA, Olympics, everything else.
Yep.
Right. It's anything else for American. Let me be clear. That's American-born NBA players. For a lot of these other guys with their national teams, it's still the international competitions are right on par with the NBA, because I don't want to suggest that they care about this more than the NBA, because I don't know that that's the case, but it's clearly for American-born players, it's less of a priority. So then you go to your next best guys, probably Bam Adebayo, and my guess is he'll probably be there for the Olympics, and that'll help some. But Jaren Jackson Jr., to be fair to Jaren Jackson Jr., he's being miscast as a 5. That's not what he is. He's a 4 who plays some 5 for the Grizzlies, has been his entire career. He is not a true 5 man. He's not a great rebounder. Yeah. But if you're going to build a roster where your bigs aren't great rebounders, then your wings and guards better be. And I believe the leading rebounder for Team USA in the entire tournament was Josh Hart. And that's Josh Hart's a very good rebounder for his
that
position.
is his specialty, but he is a guard.
But yes, exactly. He's a guard wing. And I think he averaged 6 rebounds per game. Now, with Team USA, a lot of the stats are a little mooted because they're, they play, nobody plays 30, 35 minutes for them. They're playing 25, 30 minutes is a lot. So it's but that remains a problem, right? That's something they're going to have to figure out because there just aren't really good big men. And that's been a problem in other cycles. And they've gotten past it generally with relative ease in some other competitions when they have the very best players there. But it is something they're going to have to figure out because we figure at the Olympics, Nikola Jokic is going to be there. Presumably Joel Embiid will be playing for somebody next summer, whether that's France, whether that is, there's still talk now, which maybe Team USA puts the full court press on. It says, come play for us. Like, we need you, big fella. Let's go. But, we'll see, and if they could, that's obviously a massive, benefit to them. But, yeah, I mean, this interior defense issue is going to be a problem. The rebounding is going to be a problem just because they don't have those guys there. There's no more Dwight Howards. There's no more, of those guys who that's what they do is lock down the boards. Even Tyson Chandler, when he was playing a lot for Team USA, that was, he's a good rebounder, good interior defender. Like we just don't have those guys right now.
Well, and that's a part of that is the shift we've seen in the NBA game. If you're a big and you want to get paid, you either have to be an elite rim protector or you've got to be able to shoot the three. So for most bigs who maybe in 10 years ago would become just fantastic rebounders, they're not spending as much time in there. They're spending more time working on their outside shot because that's how you get paid, because that's what the NBA game more and more is requiring. I'm trying to think, like, who is the next guy up? I mean, Walker Kessler was on the roster, wasn't used very much. A year from now, what does he look like developmentally? That's something to certainly consider. But who else can you turn to, really? I mean, there's a few young guys that are kind of up and coming, but yeah, it's a little tough to picture who really mans the middle that solves the rebounding problem, if not Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's there. I think it's going to have to be team wide, right? It's going to have to be we load up on really good rebounders across the board and just try to do it as a team. And some of it's going to have to be guys who are not afraid to do the dirty work and get in there, get a little gritty, lock in, box out, do all that little stuff. This isn't just pull the 12 best American born players and throw them in there. You do have to consider some skill set and that sort of stuff. That said, we're hearing Stephen Curry's finally saying, hey, maybe I'll do it. A lot of the other guys, and we know, especially after Team USA loses, a bunch of the guys are like, all right, now we're back in, and it helps that it's an Olympic team as well. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, just disappointing. On the winning side front, Dennis Schroeder's looked really good. All tournament. Germany's the only undefeated team left in this thing, so they could have an undefeated run all the way to the gold if they beat Serbia. Franz Wagner looks good, looks healthy, which is really great. Daniel Theis played, he looked amazing, excellent.
He made the U.S. look really thin with the bigs. By the way, like when Daniel Theis is crushing you, you've got a problem.
Got a Daniel Theis is. I like Daniel Theis. I think he's a good player. Sure. But he was really giving them the business. But that's also, he does all that dirty work, right? He's in there boxing out and sacrificing his body and all those other things that a lot of the other guys don't do. On the other side, Bogdan Bogdanovic has been excellent all tournament long, and has really played well. And then Nikola Milutinov, whose draft rights are held by the Brooklyn Nets, played great. If you want to do some Google Translate or Twitter Translate on some tweets, I had a tweet about him.
So mad at you.
There's some pretty funny insults in Greek that came back that have been making me laugh all morning. It's funny. I don't think people realize sometimes a lot of these things, they don't really bother me too much. Like a lot of times they're more just funny. It make me laugh. And a handful of these did, because if we know anything, a lot of Europeans can be very witty with their insults. They tend to be pretty good. So sometimes I don't understand all the references, but that's just me being an American, but they are pretty good. So, but yeah, I mean, it should be a fun final. And then, the bronze, man, like we said.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate, but hey, get through this game on Sunday, come home, stay safe, all that sort of stuff. Okay, I know we've got I got a bunch of other things to talk about here today. Let's get into this. Trey Murphy does have surgery on his knee, so he will be out 10 to 12 weeks. That could be towards the end of November, maybe that we see him back. Maybe by the time he gets like up to speed, maybe. Which, I mean, the NBA season starts at the end of October, so you think, okay, maybe that's not so bad, all things considered. But remember, very tight race in the Western Conference. Injuries are going to matter a lot. Obviously, there'll be time to make up ground, but not ideal for the Pelicans to now be going into the season without probably their biggest three-point threat here in Trey Murphy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, going to play a huge role. We talked about it a little bit when we talked about, was he going to start? Was he going to come off the bench? But either way, he was going to play a ton. He was going to be, he'd play the equivalent of any starter in the league for this Pelicans team, just because of the role he was going to have. And yeah, now he'll be a little bit behind the 8 ball. So you do start to worry a little bit about what this could mean for this year. I think it was Seth Partnow said on Twitter, he's worried it could be a lost season for Trey Murphy. And I do worry, right, that could be a thing, because I think, one of the things that you get concerned about with this type of injury is this one where he gets back, but then he plays 5 games, misses 5 games, plays 10 games, is out for, 3 weeks. Like that's what you worry about with this. So, I'm hopeful that this is all it is, right? And we see him, in November, and he's back and he's playing and doing well. But history tells us it could sometimes not necessarily go that way. Like Cam Johnson missed a ton of last year, but then did get back and played at the end of the year and seemed to be all right. So I'm hopeful for the best here, but I am very nervous about this one.
Yeah. This is not good. Not what we want to hear to start the season. Unfortunately, it's just a reality in sports that we do have injuries and things like that happen, but certainly not what we want to see, especially for a Pelicans team that is extremely talented when they can stay healthy. That's always been their issue. And here it is again. All right. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander doing some fantastic things for Team Canada, and may be sticking around in OKC. Recent report says that opposing GMs are no longer looking at SGA as a player who will ask out of the Thunder. The Thunder are our team. If you followed us on Lakers Nation, we did a whole breakdown of the Western Conference. I'm very, very high on OKC. They are near the top of my League Pass list of teams that I have to catch on League Pass. I love the way this team plays, the energy that they play with, and I can't wait to see what they look like now that they are getting healthier. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, maybe he will ultimately wind up staying in OKC. Certainly one of the young rising stars in today's NBA.
Yeah, and this came out of Sam Amick on The Athletic. Did kind of a it was fun. I think it's kind of where we're all at a little bit. Like, hey, I'm going to write about the NBA and just some stuff I have thoughts on, which is kind of fun because I think everybody's just kind of getting back, right? Like my fun thing beyond the obviously great must listen NBA front office podcast, my podcast feed's starting to fill up with NBA shows again, which I'm very excited about because, I spend quite a lot of time in the car each day driving around to various things. So that's my listen. So we're getting this kind of stuff. And one of the things Sam Amick wrote about was when SGA signed his extension with the Thunder, obviously a bunch of fans said, cool, so he's just going to ask for a trade and, did whatever random timeline they put on it. But there were a lot of NBA executives who were like, yeah, he's taking the money and then he's going to ask out of there. And now he's saying they've improved so rapidly with so much more very easy to envision improvement coming and still a ton of draft picks and flexibility and all that stuff. He's like, that hope is gone that he'll ever ask for a trade, which is, I always thought that was pretty premature and kind of silly anyway. Cause it was like, I assumed he signed that extension knowing they were rebuilding, but yeah, man, I'm This is great. And you're absolutely spot on it. I cannot wait to watch that Thunder team with Chet Holmgren and all this stuff. What my hope is, again, this is a very selfish thing. We're done with the Thunder doing those nights where it's, okay, we're going to sit everybody and play a bunch of random dudes tonight. Or, all right, Jalen Williams has started every game, but now he's going to come off the bench tonight. And we're going to start Jeremiah Robinson Earl just because. And I think they're past that in their team kind of growth arc now. They're a playoff contender, so I'm hopeful we're past that. Because selfishly, you catch them on the wrong night, and it's kind of like, I will say though, even on the wrong night, good, I'm putting that in quotes. Mark Daignault has that team ready to play. And
he does.
No matter who's out there, they're going to give you the business, even if they're sitting guys. So, you got to go in, ready to go and prepared to play a real game. But, seeing this full team together, man, they're fun. A lot of different ways they can play, a lot of stuff, and getting Chet Holmgren in the mix, just so much better, even, with him in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Last thing we've got for today, Anthony Davis. No surprise. Doesn't want to play too many minutes at the center position. Rob Pelinka
maybe he will for Team USA.
He may need to. But Rob Pelinka talked about this way back during Summer League, which feels like a lifetime ago. Talked about how they were, envisioning maybe Jackson Hayes playing alongside AD, and we all kind of, rolled our eyes and said, well, they're not really going to do that. But the sentiment was, if you read between the lines, that maybe that's kind of pacifying AD, who the Lakers wanted to sign to an extension the next month, and say, hey, we essentially say, we hear you. We understand you don't want to spend all of your minutes at center, which is basically what he did last season, spent like 99% of his minutes at center this past season. They've obviously brought in Christian Wood. They've got Jackson Hayes. There will be some opportunities for Anthony Davis to not play the center spot, but he's also still going to have to play quite a bit of center. That's still going to happen.
Yeah, we talked about this with the Christian Wood signing, where some of this is the trickle-down piece, because if he's playing at the 4, that means LeBron has to play the 3, which is not necessarily his best position anymore. That probably takes, a potential shooter out of the lineup, maybe, if you're just sliding everybody down. And that becomes a little bit of a challenge. I think there was additional reporting that Rui Hachimura is going to start. So if Rui Hachimura is going to start, well, then obviously AD is going to have to play the 5, because LeBron's not playing the 2. Like we know those days are long since gone. And I get it. For everybody's like, well, LeBron's really the point guard. I get
that's offense. Position matters on defense.
Exactly. Positions are really about who you defend. His offensive role is, yes, he's their primary initiator, creator, whatever you want to call it. We all recognize that. But he is not – LeBron James is not chasing Jamal Murray around screens, and navigating, pick and rolls like that, 50, 80 times a game. It's just not happening anymore. So I think, he's going to have to play the 5. Their best lineups will be with him at the 5. I think we all know that. I think it would behoove the Lakers to play him at the 4 some when you can. If you play a team, you're playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, you can play him at the 4. It's got to, you're playing the Thunder. Probably not, right? Like, because then that means LeBron's chasing around a wing and AD's spending a lot of time defending out on the perimeter, which I guess is kind of the idea here. It was funny when this came out. I saw some people saying, like, why does he care? Like, there's no Hakeem Olajuwon or Shaq who's going to back him down and put him in the goal like, it used to be in the old days. True. There's not a lot of guys like that. Embiid will do that a little bit. Jokic will do that some for sure. The big problem is when he plays the 5, most teams still run some version of a 1-5 or a 2-5 or a 3-5 pick and roll where the center is the screener. That means he has to get out there, hedge on the perimeter. The Lakers generally don't do a ton of switching. They do a lot of contain and then get back to your man type defensive stuff. So he's got to help up there, recover to his man, get back there. And it just puts a lot of stuff on him. He's got to then defend from 35 feet out all the way back to the goal because they don't play another rim protector with him very rarely. So that turns into, it puts a lot of just mileage on him. Shaq is not out there banging in Anthony Davis and putting him in the 5th row as he turns and dunks. That's not happening. Fully get that. But it's just the mileage of it. When you're the only rim protector on the floor most of the time, That means you're the one who's challenging the shots. Even if you're great at it, which he is, you're still taking those hits and you're taking that contact. Even when you get the block, you're generally taking a hit to the midsection and things like that. And I'm sure Anthony Davis is looking at it and saying, like, man, I would like to play 65, 70, 75 games. And I'm not going to be able to if I need to do 35, 40 minutes a night playing center. It's just not going to happen.
All that you're saying is spot on. I'll add on to that. One of the great things about Anthony Davis defensively is he can destroy worlds when he's allowed to just be a roamer, right? He's got that 7'6" wingspan. If he's not acting as the last line of defense where he has to be kind of tethered back there to the basket, where he's always got to have in his mind, like, hey, I got to go protect the rim. If he could be out there destroying passing lanes, interrupting everything, that's where he can really be a difference maker. It's like we saw in the playoffs. The Lakers didn't have him defend Jaren Jackson Jr. one-on-one draft. They had him defend somebody else, Xavier Tillman, someone like that, and then come over. When you can get away with more of that style of play, that allows Anthony Davis to cover up for a lot of other players. And also, you can have rim protection as a weak side shot blocker.
Yep.
And that requires a lot less contact than, even if it's John Morant, he's coming 100 miles an hour down the paint and I got to jump straight up and he's going to slam into me. Even if it's not a big, being able to be a weak side rim protector takes that contact off of you as well. So all of those things are reasons why Anthony Davis doesn't really want to have to play the center all the time. But I do think the Lakers are going to be at their best when he's playing the center position. So during the regular season, sure, if you can get through it with him not having to take on that mileage, not having to deal with the contact, great. That's probably in everybody's best interest. Come playoff time, when the games matter, he's going to be playing the 5.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's, my thought would be in the really important regular season games, if you can get through and then still close each half, last 3 minutes of the first half, last 5 minutes of the game with AD at the 5, you're probably fine. Not enough should go wrong throughout the rest of the game where those become completely meaningless minutes. So I think that's it. And then, I think in the big playoff matchups, you have that to go to. And part of that too is the roster balance they've created, right? You have other options, because last year at the beginning of last season, there wasn't really other good options because I guess you could have played like Damian Jones, but the rest of your roster was such a mess because everybody was a 6'4" shooting guard. Like you were kind of stuck in like it's got to be him at the 5 all the time. So I think there's whether it's Jared Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura, now Christian Wood, you have other ways you can play that are slightly different. Jackson Hayes, I kind of have my doubts on Jackson Hayes. We'll see. Yeah. I was a big believer in him early on, and he just kind of then never got there, kind of stagnated. So, we'll see. But I think you have other options you can go to, which are good. The stuff about Hachimura starting, it's semi-interesting. It makes some sense. I think, personally, I kind of like Jared Vanderbilt there.
Yeah.
But I get that then you have shooting concerns because AD hasn't shot it well. And now LeBron's kind of come and go with a jump shot. So now you're putting a lot on Reeves and probably Russell as the other 2 starters of who's going to hit shots and those things. So I get that part of it. But, if the goal is we got to play somebody else, play some of the more rugged 5 minutes, it's probably got to be Vanderbilt because no one else is really necessarily set up to do it.
Well, and this all ties into what we talked about a little bit with Team USA, and that's Austin Reeves. If you go to the advanced, you look at the eye test, it tells you, and you look at the advanced stats, and they tell you he can defend 2s and 3s, no problem. He's a good, not great, but good defender in those situations. If you're asking him to defend quick point guards, you're asking him to do something that's outside of his wheelhouse. Just like if you're asking him to defend a 5, you wouldn't want to ask him to do that.
Yep.
If the Lakers roster has Rui Hachimura in it, there's really no choice but Austin. It's not going to be D'Angelo Russell unless Gabe Vincent beats out D'Lo for that spot in the Lakers starting backcourt. You're going to be asking Austin Reeves to defend the likes of Ja and players like that, unless it is Jared Vanderbilt that starts over Rui. But then, like you said, then you've got the issue of the shooting. So it's a matter of balancing things out, and that's going to be one of Darvin Ham's tasks to figure out this season. How do you put together the best lineup that's going to work? The money says it should be Rui. He's the one getting paid more. So it wouldn't shock me if that's what it is. But We'll see. We'll see. I do think the Lakers are going to try to mix in some extra bigs, though, to get Anthony Davis out of the center spot when appropriate.
I think that's probably still the number one item on the to-do list, even after adding Christian Wood, is, hey, we're going to keep everything kind of open all season long. And if there's a big that pops that we really think fits and AD can play the four with another big, great. Like, as silly as it may sound, because they'd never get him because he's, locked in with Milwaukee, but a guy like Brook Lopez who can really be the 5 defensively and can spread the floor a little bit with his shooting, that's, definitely somebody I think you would be very happy to go get if you could. And I say that saying this is coming from the guy who used to rip Celtics fans when they were like, they need a Chris Paul type. And I'm like, there's one Chris Paul. Like, there's not, 10 Chris Pauls running around. There's not 10 Brook Lopez's, right? Or their teams already have them. So that's where, but that becomes, again, this was the brilliance of the Westbrook trade, just using that. And this was something I hammered on for months. I was like, Kyrie's not the move with that contract. The move is go get 3-4 guys.
Yep.
They rebalanced the roster so well with that trade, and then re-signing kind of the key guys that they did. Now you have a lot of different options going into the season, which is really good. It's like, as much as it saddens me, because I would like to see the Lakers go like 10-62 or 10-72 and be horrible. Like, you have to feel better going into this season about where this roster is than last year by 100-fold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because last year was like, all right, well, we know AD's going to start. We know LeBron's going to start. Kind of, I think most people thought, at least at the beginning of the year, Russ will probably start. Then it's which of the what are 2 of the 25 shooting guards on the roster? And now, obviously, I'm exaggerating, but not too much. Will start alongside those guys. Now it's like, all right, even if there are some questions about a spot or two, at least they're guys who make sense in the positions they're in, and it's just the roster balance is really good. I just think I want AD to recognize you playing the 4 is not just about you. It's about what happens to everybody else on the roster too, because that's where it is. And my guess is when push comes to shove, they'll get there and they'll figure it out. And the reality is, like you said, where he's going to play plenty of 5.
Yeah. I mean,
does it start that way? We've seen a lot of really good teams start a center, pull them out, at the first TV timeout. Used to be at the first TV timeout, like 5 minutes in. Now it's sometimes halfway through the first quarter, but they play the opening 5 or 6 minutes of each half and you never see them again. A lot of teams have done that over the years, and very, very good teams. Maybe that's where the Lakers find that balance if they could get a guy like that.
Yeah, it's we saw occasionally would see JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard in that type of a role in the past. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And yes, this Lakers roster definitely much, much better than the one in terms of balance than the one we saw last season. We literally went into last season saying this roster is put together for a Russell Westbrook. Like, it makes no sense with Russell Westbrook on the roster. The big question was, can they tread water until they find a trade? And that was it. Just hang on. Just keep yourself in the mix until you can find a trade. And ultimately it worked out for them. But yes, definitely roster makes way more sense right now than it did last year. Not close. That's for sure.
Yeah. I want to throw in one quick thing. We didn't have it here. And this is just more for the Lakers fans that watch the show, which we know is a lot of our audience. The Exhibit 10 guys that they signed. Oh, yeah. I think probably the one nobody really knows is Vincent Valerio Badone. This kid's interesting. He's young-ish. He's only 22. He has not played super high level. He's played in various pro leagues in Hungary. But last year took real steps forward as a player. And to give a little bit of background, he's 6'9", kind of 3-4 combo forward kind of guy. Last season, he jumped up to 41% from 3 on about 3.5 attempts per game, which is starting to get into the range of like, all right, that's interesting. Yeah. Over 100 attempts for the season. Shot over 50% from the field. Now, more than half of his shots did come from 3. So he did, I'm not going to say a specialist, but he kind of trended in that direction. He can play a little bit of defense. He's a pretty decent athlete. Performed really well. And the kind of second division of the European under 20 and under 18 tournaments. As far as a scorer, he was a little miscast in the U20 in 2021. He was kind of playing as their primary scoring option, and he had to do a lot more off the dribble than I think he was ready for and comfortable with. The year before, he had a little bit more help, played more of a reasonable role, but at least interesting to monitor. And I think if he's signing this late, he's probably going to the G League. Maybe he outplays somebody and steals a two-way spot. I know the Lakers have all three signed right now. Sometimes teams will make a late shuffle, but we'll see with Valerio Badon. I wanted to throw that out there because I know not a lot of people have probably looked at him, and I had a chance to catch him. He popped. And the reason I knew, because he played for the Celtics Summer League team in a game this year, so I had a chance to check him out there. He actually played well in the one game he played for Boston and Las Vegas, so just wanted to throw that in here at the end. Little present for you before you go on vacation.
I do appreciate that, and now that you mentioned it, I am indeed going on vacation next week. Ron Gutterman will be filling in for me here on the NBA Front Office Show. Going to go take a little bit of family time and then get ready for training camp and the season to start up. So exciting times. With that, thank you everybody for joining us. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube, as well as the podcast feed over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.